Hi friends, it's Lisa Hetrick, illustrator for Gina K Designs, and I'm so grateful you could join me today. There is something good in every day, and today we're going to make this fun card, except there's going to be a little bit of a twist. And I am super obsessed about this little sunflower kind of look I got going on here, but this is the card that's going to be the inspiration for today, but I am going to completely change up the whole look and feel simply by changing the color palette. So here's the color palette that we're going to be using. I'm using Gina K Designs dye inks. Love! I've got prickly pear, actually honey mustard, prickly pear, plum punch, lovely lavender, grass green, and sweet corn. And I am digging this color combination for fall and actually for any time. I'm not really sure how this card's going to turn out because I really did use a lot of pale colors in my card that I created for inspiration. That was the inspiration behind this design, but we'll see. Okay, so my card base is going to be innocent pink. I'm going to keep that. I really love innocent pink for a card base because it allows you to still use it to write your sentiment on the inside. And I've got a piece of Gina K Designs layering white cardstock, and you can see the card's just set up in an A2 sized card, 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, scored at the 5 1/2. There we go. Got the measurements right for you. And this is going to be a vertical card. It's going to be super fun. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to get started on creating the embellishments. And I've got my Something Good stamp set with Gina K Designs, and I'm going to be using a lot of the elements from the stamp set. But I'm using this main floral, line art floral, and I'm going to recreate that look of the sunflower. So I'm stamping it down here in a little bit of sweet corn. So I'm working light to dark. And then I'm going to add a little bit of dimension to the center of it by using, just using some black, Gina K Designs black, to just really get that whole, yep, this looks like a sunflower kind of thing going on here. And then I'm just using a little bit of honey mustard with the splatter stamp and just adding a little bit. Actually, I'm using prickly pear. I love that prickly pear. I fooled myself there. I'm using prickly pear and just adding a little bit more texture to the center of that flower. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this sunflower out and just fussy cut it, and so that we have it ready to use for the main embellishment on the card. Okay, so here is the big wood slice piece from my stamp set, and I'm going to be using prickly pear and honey mustard and just using both colors on the stamp. So I'm just applying a little bit of color to the center of the stamp, and I'm going to use the darker color on the outside of the stamp, so I just can kind of get a little bit of a two-tone woodsy look. Now, you don't need to use a MISTI for this big wood slice, but I just had it nearby and I thought it would be easier for me to just get a nice good impression. You can see those two colors kind of mixing together on that Gina K paper. It's so smooth. It's the perfect paper to get those dye inks to kind of work together. Okay, I've got the big floral here, and I'm using the lovely lavender. This floral is, I'm going to stamp this big flower. Now, when I created this flower, I created it because it's kind of inspired by my watercolor florals that I do. And so it's got a little bit of extra texture and dimension into the stamp. So I stamped it here in that lovely lavender, and it really has that watercolor look and feel, and it's kind of transparent, so you can see that little woodsy slice that kind of coming through here. But it's a perfect stamp to layer, to use for layering. So I put my sunflower in position, and I'm just using the little buds now to just kind of create a larger flower that's going to flank this flower in the center. And when I put the sunflower back over it, it's just going to create that layer. So now, right now, I'm just creating all of the different layered elements that are going to be part of the card base, but layered behind the sunflower. So I'm using the different floral pieces and the different leaf pieces and just inking them up and just nesting them using that big flower is kind of my base. And you can see I keep bringing the sunflower piece back into the center here just so I can get my positioning and get my bearings here. So I'm just going to use a little bit of lovely lilac here, lovely lavender, excuse me, with the splatter, and just kind of splattering to add a little bit more texture here before I move on to creating the embellishments. Okay, so I have two more embellished pieces that I want to nest underneath the sunflower. So I've got the solid portion of the bud, and I've already stamped out the line art versions of the bud. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the two-step stamping part, but I'm going to do this with a little bit of a twist. So I'm going to show you. I'm inking up using the plum punch, and I'm inking up the solid, and I'm stamping off, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp it inside. Now, I'm going to bring it a little bit closer so that you can see. The ink in plum punch is so super juicy in my stamp. So some of the ink has moved into the crevices of the stamp. And when I stamped off, you get that nice little bit of crevices in the stamp that are coming out into the stamped off portion. So it creates more of a graphic look. So you can do that with this stamp. So you're going to take that stamp, you're going to put it in your stamp pad and just kind of get it nice and juicy. Stamp it off once, and you can see that the ink is getting into the crevices of this solid stamp. But then on the second impression, when I stamp it, it's transferring. So you're able to get a little bit more texture and dimension with this kind of stamping, because the ink is going to transfer through. So you've got the graphic line art coming through, and then you also have the graphic ink coming through the outline piece. It's kind of cool. So I'm going to go ahead and just fussy cut these two embellishments out and get everything ready to just start to assemble the card. So I'm just going to take my one layer where I have all of the pieces layered up and stamped and just get it assembled onto my cardstock base. And I'm using some of the Gina K Designs Connect glue. I love that glue. It's just amazing for cards. I'm going to go ahead and pop this sunflower piece right over top and just get that in position. And then just go ahead and take my two lovely lavender embellishments and just nest them up right underneath there. I'm really loving this look. There's a little bit of texture and dimension going on here, but not a lot of weight. I only have that one sunflower kind of lifted up. Okay, so I am going in now. Usually I use black for my sentiments, but I'm going rogue here, and I'm going to put the sentiments in plum punch and just layer it right over top of that wood slice. So for this stamp set, it's a really good idea to stamp the good first and then nest the other stamps around the good. So it gives you the positioning for nesting the something right up above the G and nesting the in everyday right below the D. And I'm really, really digging the way that sentiment looks there in the plum punch. So I'm not a big embellishment girl, but I like to take these little Nouveau drops and just kind of drop them in. And I'm dropping them in and just kind of scratching them out a little bit just to create that center of that sunflower, to get just a little bit more texture and dimension. And I'm taking this little Nouveau watercolor pen and just putting a little bit of shimmer and shine right down there in those embellishments. So I'm really digging this color palette. I really love the pink palette that I showed in the beginning with the inspiration card that I had, but I'm really digging the lavenders and the plum punch, and how the prickly pear and all the colors are coming together to create a whole different look with the same design. I just love that. It just makes me so happy. So here's a final look at the card, and I'm really, really digging this. I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial. Thanks so much for joining me. Please consider sharing the joy by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.